Nostalgic narratives.
The disease of kings. Gout's royal history. Gout, once known as a disease of the wealthy and powerful, is a condition that many still associate with excessive indulgence and extravagance. Though it might sound like an ailment of the past, its causes and effects are still relevant today. Gout is an inflammatory arthritis, a disease marked by sudden, severe pain, redness, and swelling in the joints, typically starting at the base of the big toe. The pain is so intense that sufferers often describe it as unbearable. In fact, 17th-century physician Thomas Sydenham once likened it to the pain of a dislocated bone, where the slightest touch could send waves of agony through the body. But despite the torment it brings, gout has long been a disease of distinction, tied to an extravagant lifestyle full of rich foods and fine wines, a condition that would eventually become known as the disease of kings. Throughout history, gout has been linked to indulgence. Ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, the father of medicine, was one of the first to describe the disease, associating it with rich foods and sedentary lifestyles. He noted that those who enjoyed a life of luxury were more prone to the affliction, a point that seemed to be confirmed by subsequent generations. In fact, the ancient Greeks called gout podagra, meaning foot grabber, a term that aptly described the condition's favorite target, the big toe. It was no surprise that, for centuries, gout was considered a disease of the upper class, one that showcased the affliction's primary victims, the rich and powerful. The excesses of royal feasts, with their meats, wines, and luxurious diets, provided the perfect breeding ground for uric acid buildup, the root cause of gout. The association between gout and wealth became so strong that it eventually became a symbol of high social status. In the 16th century, a disease that could otherwise cripple its victims became a form of social currency. Gout became something to brag about, an unfortunate but undeniable marker of opulence. In 1900, a writer for the London Times famously quipped that while the common cold was a universal ailment, gout instantly elevated a person's social standing. It was the ultimate humble brag. While the poor were excluded from the pleasures that led to the disease, the wealthy openly displayed their suffering as a sign of affluence. In a sense, those with gout were the original influencers, proudly showcasing their indulgences with meatfoot and that gout life. But for those suffering from the actual disease, it was a far cry from the glamorous life that the rich imagined. Over the centuries, the treatments for gout ranged from the logical to the utterly bizarre. In ancient China, acupuncture was commonly used, while the Byzantine Empire favored the medicinal properties of autumn crocuses. However, one of the most outlandish treatments came from a 1518 medical text, which recommended the consumption of a roast goose stuffed with kittens. Yes, you read that correctly, kittens. The idea was to consume the stuffed goose and then apply the drippings to the affected joints. Unsurprisingly, this treatment did nothing to cure gout, but it's a testament to the strange and often grotesque remedies doctors would concoct in the name of healing. It wasn't until much later, in the modern era, that colchicine, a drug derived from the autumn crocus, was recognized as an effective treatment. While treatments may have been wild and ineffective, the perception of gout as an aphrodisiac was just as misguided. In the 16th and 17th centuries, many believed that the disease somehow enhanced a man's virility. This rather strange notion was championed by essayists and philosophers of the time, such as Michel de Montaigne, who claimed that gout made a man's reproductive organs more full and vigorous. Others suggested that the illness gave men an excuse to rest, which supposedly increased their energy in other areas of life. These bizarre theories about the relationship between gout and sexual potency persisted for centuries, despite any medical evidence to support them. Modern science, however, has yet to find any link between the two, and it's safe to say that if your Bumble profile mentions gouty, you're not going to attract many matches. Gout's historical roots trace all the way back to 400 BCE, when Hippocrates first documented it. He believed that the disease was caused by an imbalance of phlegm in the body and that it was incurable. Hippocrates wasn't the only one who struggled to understand gout. Many physicians over the years could only guess at its causes and symptoms. In the 17th century, Thomas Sydenham, another prominent physician, described the sharp pain that would seize the joints, particularly the big toe, during a flare-up. He was among the first to realize that gout was not just a physical ailment, but one that affected the rich, and as a result, it became a social marker of their excess. In fact, the wealthy weren't the only ones to suffer from gout in the royal courts. Historical records suggest that many famous figures in history, including kings and rulers, were afflicted by the disease. King Henry VIII, whose reign is remembered for his tumultuous marriages and political intrigue, was also known for his battles with gout. But Henry VIII was hardly alone. The famous Italian ruler Piero di Cosimo, from the influential Medici family, was often mocked for his gout and earned the unflattering nickname Piero the Gouty. Even Benjamin Franklin, the American founding father, suffered from the disease, describing his flare-ups as a cruel torment. Franklin even wrote to his beloved gout, asking, "What have I done to merit these cruel sufferings?" The answer, of course, was a diet of indulgence and excess. But perhaps the most consequential case of gout in history came from the political realm. During the 1764 parliamentary debates over the Stamp Act, British statesman William Pitt the Elder was suffering from a severe gout flare-up. His condition kept him from attending the debates, and it was only after he recovered that he was able to successfully push for the repeal of the act, arguing that Americans had the right to representation in Parliament. Had Pitt not been sidelined by gout, the course of history may have been altered. Similarly, the disease may have played a role in the Boston Tea Party, where Pitt's absence from a critical meeting allowed the British to impose a tax on tea, leading to the famous protest. But even in the halls of power, gout didn't always lead to action. Emperor Charles V, who ruled over a vast empire that spanned Europe, Asia, and the Americas, suffered greatly from gout due to his love of rich foods and wine. His flare-ups were so debilitating that they affected his ability to lead during crucial moments of his reign. In one notable instance, after the French captured the city of Metz in 1552, Charles V was too ill to command his army and ultimately abandoned efforts to reclaim the city. Gout had rendered him incapable of acting, and he later abdicated the throne in favor of a quieter life at a monastery, free from the demands of leadership. The treatment of gout over the centuries has often been as odd as the disease itself. In ancient times, remedies ranged from herbal concoctions to wearing special footwear designed to alleviate the pain. One popular method involved resting the affected leg on a special stool, aptly called a gout stool. By the 20th century, more bizarre treatments emerged, including the use of leeches to draw out the bad humors from the body. While these methods may seem outlandish today, they reflect the desperate measures taken in the face of a condition that was little understood at the time. In modern times, gout is no longer considered a sign of royal excess, and its treatments are far more effective. With medications, dietary changes, and lifestyle adjustments, gout can now be managed more effectively, allowing sufferers to live more comfortably. Gone are the days of gout stools and leech therapy. Today, with the right treatment, gout can be controlled, allowing people to enjoy their lives without the crippling pain that once defined the condition. However, the legacy of gout, both as a disease of kings and a symbol of indulgence, remains an indelible part of history. Its story reminds us of the dangers of excess and the sometimes painful consequences of a life lived too richly.